Are you tired of juggling contacts, manually following up, and deals falling through the cracks? We can fix it so you never lose another lead, enabling 24/7 sales and support via an AI that learns your business. Ready to close more deals with less hassle? Get a free trial of our marketing automation at thebuzzcrm.com.
My friends, I am Vivian McPeak, and this is Hemp Present. If you have feedback or would like to suggest a guest or topic for Hemp Present, email me at hemppresent@gmail.com. Dr. Allison Justice is an alumnus of Clemson University, where she garnered a PhD in plant and environmental science, and she is now a pioneering figure in the dynamic field of cannabis cultivation and research, with a groundbreaking tenure as VP of Cultivation for a leading vertically integrated cannabis producer based in San Diego, California. She navigated uncharted territories and led the industry with profound photobiology research. Dr. Justice shattered misconceptions about sole source LEDs, demonstrating their superiority over traditional technologies in cannabis cultivation, which catalyzed a twofold expansion of total canopy area and facilitated a staggering 60% reduction in energy costs. Today, she is the proud founder and CEO of The Hemp Mine, a 20-acre innovative hemp farm, breeding company, and hemp plant product manufacturer. Dr. Justice has been recognized by esteemed organizations like the California Industrial Hemp Advisory Board and South Carolina Farm Bureau, and has been named one of the top 40 under 40 in cannabis by Marijuana Venture magazine and one of Dope magazine's 4 Dope Women. And City Beats, one of San Diego's most important people. And Harrison Bard is an accomplished entrepreneur, having started multiple companies in the e-commerce space. He has worked with many Fortune 500 companies, including McDonald's, Facebook, Yelp, Zappos, Whole Foods, and UPS. He co-founded Custom Cones USA in 2017, the leading and most trusted ancillary company in the pre-roll space. Through Custom Cones USA, Harrison has worked with publicly traded LPs and MSOs, leading U.S. brands and companies of every size. His expertise in every facet of the pre-roll sector, from paper science to pre-roll manufacturing technology and techniques to a deep understanding of packaging and compliance regulations, has allowed Custom Cones USA to help create new products, scale brands, and bring more consistency to the pre-roll sector of the industry. And most recently, Harrison co-founded Day Savers, which is the most compliantly tested and innovative pre-rolled cone and tube company for consumers. And that completes the first segment of our show today. No, just kidding. They have both joined me today to educate and inform us. Welcome, Allison and Harrison, to Cannabis Radio.
Thanks so much, Vivian. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited to be here and talk science with you.
Great. Yeah, I made it through that intro without screwing up too bad. Let's just kind of start off by having you both tell us a little bit about the companies you work with. And I think that's the Hemp Mine, the Cannabis Research Coalition, and Custom Cones USA, if I have that right.
That's right. So I'm founder of both the Hemp Mine and the Cannabis Research Coalition. And the Cannabis Research Coalition is primarily focused on horticultural growing, cultivation science, post-harvest science. But what we're here to talk about today is the science of smokability. And so that's a very important project to not only myself and my companies, but also the community. And that has been shown to, echo by the grand support we've had from the community, specifically Custom Cones and their support for this research.
Yeah, and I'm Harrison from Custom Cones USA and Day Savers. So we started Custom Cones USA back in 2017, before pre-rolls were cool or a big part of the market. Back then, pre-rolls were a way for farmers to kind of just get rid of shake. They were really low quality. Customers didn't really care about them. But then over the years, we've helped pave the way for farmers and companies to create higher quality pre-rolls by giving them better quality pre-roll cone products, like with glass tips, wood tips, ceramic filter tips, different shapes and sizes, blunt wraps. But what we really specialize in is the entire manufacturing process as well. So we've provided companies with better grinders, sifters, and cone filling machines, which have helped companies produce better quality pre-rolls with less labor, so they're able to drop the cost per pre-roll and give customers a higher quality product at a lower price point, and that's really helped grow the pre-roll market overall. And then what we realized through Custom Cones USA, we're really strict in terms of compliance. So every state has different compliance regulations in terms of heavy metals, pesticides, microbials. It's also different in Canada. So we've been really strict in making sure that our products are safe no matter what market our customers are in. And then we realized that none of these laws or regulations apply to consumer products. So if you're buying a regulated cannabis product, luckily there are laws in place. But then if you buy flower and then just go to a head shop or smoke shop and buy blunt wraps, those products are not being tested for anything. So those could have all three: heavy metals, pesticides, and microbials. So we set out to take all of the strict compliance standards, as well as all of the innovative shapes and filter types and paper options that we've developed through Custom Cones USA, and bring that directly to consumers through Day Savers. And we're really interested in science and just elevating product quality. So once we learned that Allison, Ashley, and the team at the Cannabis Research Coalition, the Network of Applied Pharmacognosy, was working on this study called The Science of Smokability, we were extremely excited and eager to take part in that. And this research is really, truly going to be revolutionary and groundbreaking to the cannabis industry, and just shedding light on what is actually happening and what's the difference between different types of flowers and processing techniques in terms of how does that affect the actual analytical components of a smoking experience.
I am seriously OG, and I started using cannabis before glass pipes and vaporizers and pre-rolled doobies. Back during the days of hand-rolled joints and bamboo bongs and brass pipes. But the advent of the modern age of cannabis has brought science into the mix. And of course, that's what you guys are all about. What is smokability, and what can you tell us about the science of smokability?
All right. So the science of smokability, when we're talking pre-rolls, it's multifaceted. So you have, the qualities that make a pre-roll taste good, smell good, feel good, feel nice on the throat, the quality that you can judge right there with it in your hand. But then there's qualities that go deeper, that aren't superficial to the end user, in terms of making sense immediately. So what I mean by that is when things are combusted, they may convert, they have different deliveries because of heat, pull, pressure. And so understanding, according to different treatments we put the pre-rolls through, whether it's, different water activities or different nutrient inputs on the plants that are making these pre-rolls, every step we take of the process line can manipulate the quality. And so, in the industry, there's lots and lots of theories and lots of, experience-based information, but not necessarily science-based information on quality. And so, for an example, I may say the color of the ash. We think by rumor, color of the ash is very important and should represent quality. But as we're finding in the studies we've already started so far, it's not necessarily an aspect that we should think about as being quality. And to do this work, I've spent a limited amount of hours reading through tobacco research and really understanding, what has been done for cigarettes. And that's not to say that I think that cigarettes are great, that everybody should smoke them, and that, they hold all of the answers, but we have to start somewhere, not create the wheel 100%. And so understand what has happened in tobacco cigarette production, and what are those things that have been tweaked and how, and compare that to what we're doing. So for example's sake, if we're talking white ash, in cigarettes, they will intentionally add certain elements, some oxides, to purposefully make the ash look white. And so, knowing that, it's not quite a fair comparison to just in a blank statement say white ash means it's great quality. And so that's something we're going to have to get past, having those mindsets around quality, simply from tradition. A lot of those do shine through with the science as well. But there's a lot to investigate. It's not just the elemental content that makes up a pre-roll that will give this ash color. There's lots of other factors. And so that's just one aspect of what really means the science of smokability. You can take that a step farther and say, well, if something's combusted, it may not be healthy. And we're not here to say that smoking is bad. Obviously, myself included, we all love smoking. And so if there is something we can do to make smoking a little bit healthier, potentially by inputs of what we're putting in the grove. Another example, everybody's saying,
I'm sorry, I got to stop you because I got to go to break. So we're going to pick this up in just a second. Okay. All right. Take a quick break. We'll be right back with our second segment. Sorry about that.
Sure.
Time to roll out for the people that let us hemp present. Hang loose. We're coming right back.
We're back from break. Allison, you were talking about the science of smokability. Sorry that I had to interrupt you.
No problem. So I was just saying that, the science of smokability is not what just happens in the pre-roll production room. It's all the way back to what happens in cultivation. Again, talking about the tobacco research, there are legal limits as far as the amount of nitrogen you can put on tobacco because it is known that increased nitrogen content equates to higher nitrosamines within tobacco. And so, if you think about fertilizer companies that are pushing these, greater ECs than I've ever known on cannabis to increase yield, that's great and all for high production, being efficient in your cultivation space. But what you might actually be doing is increasing your carcinogens tenfold at the same time. And so no one has ever looked at this process as a whole, from cultivation all the way down to that substance of smoke that's entering the lungs. And so that's what we're doing together with NAP, with Controlled Chemistry, and our sponsors that have been wonderful to support this research because it's certainly not cheap. And so this is the story we want to tell. It's going to be a long process, but, we think it's very important for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, and on the manufacturing side, where we really bring our expertise is on looking at how the cannabis is being ground. There's high torque, low RPM grinders, and then there's low torque, there's high torque, low RPM, and then the vice versa, a low torque, high RPM. And when you're using a blender, food processor, or a shredder style grinder, it's going to generate a lot of heat, and that's going to degrade the terpenes, where a lot of flavor comes from, as well as has the propensity to degrade cannabinoids. Whereas a high torque, low RPM grinder is going to have the strength and grind the cannabis through a particle size screen. And then that's where the particle size is really important in terms of the science of smokability. So the particle size is going to dictate part of the airflow. It also depends on how tightly packed the joint is. But the larger particle size versus smaller particle size is going to change the temperature in which that burns, which is going to have a big impact on the overall flavor, the harshness and impact at the back of the consumer's throat as they're smoking that joint. The overall burn time. So customers might have a more satisfying experience if a joint or blunt lasts longer. And then we're also looking at different paper options, the difference between a paper and a blunt wrap. Different sizes and shapes. How does that affect the science of smokability? And then the filter options are also really important in terms of a regular paper tip versus what does a glass or ceramic tip do to elevate or cool down the smoking experience. And then another really interesting thing we're looking at is infused pre-rolls. So infused pre-rolls are quickly growing. It's actually the fastest growing segment in the cannabis industry. Almost all pre-roll sales are shifting towards infused pre-rolls. So we're actually going to do some scientific studies to see what is the best way to infuse pre-rolls. There is going to be one method that's going to have the highest yield in terms of the less cannabinoids wasted. There's going to be a certain method that burns the least hot and going to have the best flavor, the best burning experience. And so we're actually going to do the science and let both producers so they can create better joints, and then customers will know that information so they could seek out pre-rolls that are made to those standards and are going to have the best smoking experience possible.
And I imagine the least hot is like a health consideration, like along with soot and things like that. Am I off base?
Yeah, I definitely think too hot it could cause some damage, potentially, cause some cancer-causing damage to the back of the throat. It's also going to cause a lot of coughing, which could probably be bad for your lungs, bad for your blood pressure, stuff like that. But it's really difficult to make all these associations and say, this directly correlates to that.
Right.
So some of it is qualitative and some of it is quantitative.
One of the ways you study cannabis pre-rolls is by the use of an actual smoking machine. But I understand that human beings could get paid to get high by smoking cannabis as well. Is that true?
Yeah, so we have a smoking machine. Until we dug deep into this project, who don't know? There is a smoking machine, and it makes perfect sense because you need something that's going to, one, mimic humans, but also be consistent. And the reason that's important is if we smoke a pre-roll and we have a certain smoking topography, so it's pretty cool. The smoking machine's hooked up to a computer, and you can see the pull and release, the flow. And so having that and it be a repeatable process is super important for scientific and statistical purposes. So yeah, we have a smoking machine that takes that product. We can catch the smoke that'll be inhaled, mimicking inhalation, and then have that tested to understand, at different temperatures, at different humidities of the flower, how is what is actually being inhaled different. And so Harrison, I'll let you touch on how people can get paid to do this, but we'll be backing all that science up with a smoking machine in addition to what participants will be providing.
Yeah, so the smoking machine gives you a lot of data and numbers, but then what do those numbers actually mean? So that's where we're going to be sending out pre-rolls to actual consumers to smoke, and they're going to be smoking the pre-rolls that are treated and prepared to the same standards that the machine is smoking. So then we could see, okay, if the machine is giving, a reading of this number for this metric, how does a consumer rate that on a qualitative standpoint? So we're going to be sending out 2 pre-rolls to people randomly selected. They'll be getting paid $4.20, an appropriate amount for cannabis culture. And they're going to help us shed the light on the actual qualitative smoking experience. And then by matching that up with the quantitative data that the smoking machine's providing, we'll have a full 360-degree comprehensive view of all of the different metrics and qualitative metrics that we're looking for to help better explain like what inputs actually affect the smoking experience and why does that matter to a consumer.
So you're mailing cannabis to people. Where does this happen? Where is this legal? Or I guess I should ask, who can take advantage of this?
So they are going to be hemp pre-rolls, so not THC. So don't get too excited.
I see what
but
you're
it
saying.
is for the name of science. So still be excited. It is really high quality, beautiful hemp grown by Dr. Justice herself. So really amazing stuff. But yeah, just to clarify, it is going to be a hemp pre-roll, 2 hemp pre-rolls.
Got it. Very good. I was going to say that I am a very well-tested and sophisticated smoking machine myself.
Aren't we all?
Yes, hopefully. Does flower matter? Can you describe what specifications would be used to select the right flowers for pre-rolls, or is that an issue? I guess that's you kind of refer to cultivation being a factor.
Yeah, for experimentation, everything has to be held to a very high standard of consistency, because like we were saying earlier, every step you take can alter that quality, everything from pre-roll size, pre-roll grind size, how fast or how much density is within that pre-roll, what moisture content is the flower at. So it's all very important. And for these studies, we have been very meticulous at making sure each one of those steps is held constant between treatments, besides what that actual treatment may be. So for example, if we're looking at water activity differences, so, ultimately what's better, wet, medium, or dry weed, if that is the treatment itself, everything else prior to is exact. So it is extremely important that that's kept that way. Otherwise, you might not know if the difference merely is in, this person rolling the pre-roll versus that person. So using machines and being very consistent is beyond important.
Harrison, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say from like a manufacturing standpoint, a lot of companies are not using the largest colas to produce their pre-rolls. The best pre-roll companies are still using full flower. They'll use B or C grade buds. There are still some companies that use shake and trim, but it's pretty noticeable when you smoke it, as well as the THC potency and even just like the quality of the packaging. It's pretty clear what is a budget pre-roll versus what's going to be a higher quality pre-roll. And not all consumers care. So if you really don't care about flavor and super, super potent weed, which not all people want, they want to have a more mellow experience. It doesn't necessarily matter what type of flower is in there as long as it's clean. You definitely don't want anything with heavy metals, pesticides, or microbials. But the factors that do matter for a connoisseur is going to be the terpene content. That's going to indicate the flavor and also the freshness of the flower. The particle size is really important in terms of the overall smoking experience and how hot and long that pre-roll is going to burn. And then, of course, you're going to really want to make sure that the cannabis is clean as well in terms of heavy metals, pesticides, and microbials. So you're going to want to buy your flower from trusted farms.
All right, we're going to take another break and come back with our final segment. Don't go anywhere.
Time to roll out for the people that let us hemp present. Hang loose. We're coming right back.
We're back with our final segment for Allison Justice and Harrison Bard. In Seattle, where I am, testing revealed that some pre-rolls showed signs of mold, presumably because of the cutting and drying process. How important is post-harvest processing, including the proper drying and curing for cannabis that's intended for retail sale generally, but also specifically for pre-roll?
So I think that, the drying and curing, the post-harvest portion for a cultivation business is just as important as the growing aspect. You can take a perfectly grown flower, put it in a poor drying and curing environment and ruin it very quickly. And not just ruin it as far as quality and looks goes, but also really cause some problems. If you keep that flower at a really high water activity, that first very crucial 5 days, it can very fast, cover in mold. So, having a very strict protocol of getting it down to a water activity that doesn't include microbial growth, or I should say encourage microbial growth, is of high importance, not only again for quality, but for safety.
Yeah, and a farm could do everything right on the drying and curing process, but if the pre-rolls aren't stored properly, once they're produced, packaged properly, and then even once it's off the original producer's hands and into a retailer, a lot of things can go wrong. So that's why you want to make sure you have good packaging that's airtight. You could include humidity packs, like a Bovita pack inside of a package to help keep things fresh. If you use the wrong humidity pack, you could introduce too much humidity, and then that can create a breeding ground for mold. So you do want to be careful about that. And then just on the flip side, if there's too much moisture, you'll grow mold. If there's no moisture at all, the product will dry out and will degrade in quality. So we're really trying to help farms with humidors. Just as you see high quality concentrates stored in a mini fridge now, like rosin or live resin, or, those type of premium concentrates in the dispensary, those are always stored in a mini fridge now to maintain freshness. The same thing should be true for a full flower pre-roll, especially an infused pre-roll. Those are made with some of the same high quality concentrates, but they're just being left out to dry and be exposed to heat. So we're bringing solutions to manufacturers such as humidors that could be used in a manufacturing setting during production and after production, as well as in a retail setting, to ensure that pre-rolls that are made and maybe take a month or two to sell are still just as fresh as they were when they were first produced.
We've got about 2 minutes left. What should an average consumer look for? Say you want to go buy some pre-rolls. What should they be looking for?
I would suggest they look at the date. A lot of times, pre-rolls will maybe have flour that were made quite a long time ago. So I would certainly look at the date. I would look at the potency. If it's under 10%, they most likely cut that flower with trim, or maybe it's all trim and shake. And so not that I'm suggesting that you need higher potency to enjoy a cannabis product. There's certainly wonderful one-to-ones and whatnot out there. But, at this point, if it's just 10% or under THC, that usually means, it was B grade, it was shake. There's actual leaf material in there, not just other flower of another cannabinoid, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the date's really important, but not all states require the harvest date. And then one thing I've learned is that there's the harvest date in which the flower was harvested. But as long as the company then processes that again, in terms of they take that old flower and then turn it into a pre-roll, they might be allowed to put a new manufactured date on there. So it could still be a year-old flower, but now looks fresh. So definitely look for a date, but, trust your bud tender. Ask them what's recently come in. If it just recently came in, it's most likely fresh. And then, sophisticated farms are now putting the terpene percentages on packaging. So that's really more important than the overall cannabinoid content. So see if there's terpene content on the labels as well. And then support small craft farms. So, ask the bud tenders which farms are local, small, and craft, and those tend to be higher quality.
Well, this is a fascinating discussion. I wish we had more time, but we're running out of time. Very quickly, is there a URL that people can go to take advantage of the smoke a joint for $4.20?
Yeah, go to daysavers.com, daysavers.com. You'll see a homepage banner as soon as you get there that says Science of Smokability. Click on that and you'll just fill out a simple form to get entered into that. We're accepting applications through the end of July, and then we'll be randomly selecting 200 participants to send out those 2 hemp pre-rolls. So if you want to make the ultimate sacrifice and smoke 2 joints for science, make your way over to daysavers.com and sign up today.
Dr. Allison Justice and Harrison Bard, 2 people that I think should have their PhDs in THC. Thank you so much for all this great information being on the show.
Thanks so much, Vivian. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. That concludes this installment of Hemp Presented on Cannabis Radio. When it comes to prohibition, you've got your right not to remain silent. Activism requires a voice. So find your voice and speak up for justice, because resistance is fertile. The Hemp Present intro music is 7 Mile Beach by Joanne Rand, and the outro music is Take Back the Plant by Stickerbush. See you next time. Stay strong.
Marijuana, THC, sweet sativa.
Are you tired of juggling contacts, manually following up, and deals falling through the cracks? We can fix it so you never lose another lead, enabling 24/7 sales and support via an AI that learns your business. Ready to close more deals with less hassle? Get a free trial of our marketing automation at thebuzzcrm.com.